Welcome to Fringe Toast. My name is Bobby D, and this is a side order. Today we're talking about Portals to Hell Season 3, Episode 1. Just came out last night. If you've seen my video a couple of weeks ago, I was pretty excited about this coming out, and it paid off. Every bit of it paid off. Every bit of it, single bit of it. Some epiphanies were uncovered. Just spoiler warning, just fair point. If you intend on watching this episode and haven't already, please go and do so. By the way, I do highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. There were some pretty important things that I felt like was necessary to talk about that actually came from this. Even in the previous video, I was like, well, some of these shows that you see on Travel Channel, highly produced, and they don't really have a whole lot of there's no concrete evidence there because it's highly produced and you never know. It's not reality at all. That is very true. It's still true. That's still a true thing. But I also think that it's probably not safe for us to just discard anything that we see from shows like this just because they are highly produced, comparatively to what you see from some independent investigative productions. I think that this was very valuable.
We'll call it a appetizer investigation.
And I think Jack was very spot on whenever he called it that, because this was one tasty meal. He said that in the preliminary setup for this entire thing. They had an interview segment where they talked to about 4 different people to kind of collectively get down to the bottom of what they've got going on here at the View Manor. So let's talk about the View Manor for just a few seconds, all right? According to the video, it started in the early 1900s, started as a poor farm, then a retirement home, then a county morgue. It was purchased by a real estate developer who they spoke with the daughter of the real estate developer who had intentionally purchased the property to turn it into condos. And I'm thinking now, like, as someone who rents, like, I've always looked at these older buildings, these big brick facilities, whether they be factories and whatnot, that now have been turned into condos, and thought, I would love to live there. But now I'm wondering, like, what kind of energy might be housed in some of those old buildings. But after the purchase, unfortunately, the original real estate developer had passed away. And at that point, they were approached by several different paranormal investigative teams wanting to look at this facility because of its history. The amount of bodies that had been processed through that facility is, in the thousands. The fact that it was a retirement home at one point, the fact that it was a poor farm, people that were living through poverty and dealing with financial issues, lots of stress, lots of potential there for paranormal activity to have negative connotations, if you know what I mean. A lot of sadness wrapped up in financial issues. I know that firsthand. I think it's very important that we point out the fact that this facility is humongous. So in this particular episode, they focused on a smaller portion of it. There is activity across the entire thing. There's been some investigative teams that have gone into the basement and experienced some wild things, a ghost cat that might be down there. And various others. There's a bomb shelter on the facility's grounds as well. In this one, they did an investigation of the first floor with the time clock hallway and the time clock stairwell. The second floor, there was the second floor hallway where Jeffrey's room is located, and Bill Boots' room. Bill Boots being his last name, very kind of an odd. That's room 128. And they also investigated room 144. On the first floor in the time clock hallway, general perception is like just an overall creepy feeling, a feeling of confusion, almost as if though they were having a difficult time completing sentences and whatnot. I have some close. I also know that firsthand. In the time clock stairwell, they swear that there's portals under the step. Feeling of dizziness there. These things can be caused by like electromagnetic forces, chemicals, things like that can cause dizziness. But for real, the majority of the activity, to me, seemed to be on the second floor hallway. A figure of a child near the bed of some of the elderly patients that were taken care of there. And Jeffrey's room is located there. There's an entity there that they refer to as the Creeper. He hangs out there. They even had video footage of the Creeper and seen it moving in the bottom right-hand corner of it. I'm not going to show that clip because it's owned by Travel Channel. Don't want to get sued. The people report getting scratched. Bill Boots' room, 128. Bill was a patient there. It was documented. He died in 98, 99. On-site investigator / tour guide experienced sharp pains in his chest in that room. In room 144, that's supposedly where things get out of hand. So at this time, after the preliminary investigation, Jack suggests that he thinks that this may be one entity that's kind of presenting itself in multiple formats instead of multiple entities where, we've been introduced to Bill, we've been introduced to Jeffrey, we've been introduced to the Creeper. We've been introduced to several different characters and given names to several different characters, but he has a hunch that this may be a correlate. This might all be one entity, and that's kind of, I don't know if that take was done after the investigation that we're going to talk about next, or if this was something that he thought of prior to the psychic coming in and doing her walkthrough. In this preliminary investigation, their first stop is at Bill's room. They do a portal session with Ken, the on-site investigator / tour guide, and he's the one that noted that he had sharp pains in his chest in room 128, Bill's room. And he also said that he had a suggestion from the spirit box that whatever he do not go to room 144. So they tried to corroborate that evidence, and as a matter of fact, they did. They sat down with the porter session. Jack sat down, Katrina sat down along with Ken, and they just tried to make contact with Bill Boots. And in that communication, hey, is this Bill? Bill? Yeah, it's me. I'm here. Hey, how y'all doing? They asked him how he was doing that night, which I thought was very cool. It's the same way that I would go about an investigation. Is like, hey, man, what's happening? Just coming in, just stopping in to say hello. What do you got going on tonight? He's like, I'm on camera. On camera comes through on the portal. And then they ask him, hey, should Ken go to room 144? And he says, no, wait. Ken, wait. Wait, Ken. And then they ask specifically what would happen if Ken went to room 144. And the word death came up and fade to black. Next step, they bring in the psychic medium, Michelle Belanger, who comes into the facility blindfolded. That way she doesn't have any input from any kind of her visual senses. All she has to go on is what she's hearing auditorily and what she's sensing intuitively. So they took Michelle to several different locations. The first stop in her tour of this facility was at the time clock stairwell. And there she reported corroboration of the evidence of like, this is a shifting of energy. This is a feeling of dizziness, she reported immediately. The next place they took her to was Jeffrey's room. That's when she kind of made the big reveal that that this entity is a mimic. Like it changes. It changes based off of what is going to give the most visceral response, which was the direct quote. Visceral response is the driver for how this entity is going to present itself, whether it be from the point of it being a child to it being a large, masculine, male, big, scary thing. Then they took her over to room 144. They didn't even stop by Bill Booth's room with her. But she noted there that she felt like that room was the location or the setting for a violent occurrence. Like someone moved from 144 across the hallway, and that's where someone was attacked. But now it's time, and the format of this episode, for them to dig deeper. And as Jack pointed out, having a psychic medium there almost can allow them to, A, get corroborating evidence to substantiate some of the claims that they recorded in the preliminary walkthrough, but it also gives them kind of a direction to point at in the investigation, so they know where they feel like they're going to get the more activity from the walkthrough that Michelle did for them. So from that walkthrough, they were able to narrow it down to a couple of spots that they wanted to take a look at, and they did so on the second story. Katrina and Jack went together. They had a session there where Jack posed that he knock on an object and see if he could get a response, a call and response kind of, from just a knock on a table. That actually wound up resulting in a couple of sounds that were not, they weren't able to find logical explanation for. There were a couple of tapping noises, which I think were good, but then there was one specific bang. And at which point, that's whenever I fell in love with this episode, because it made me jump. Their anxiety was through the roof at that point, and I loved it. That's outside of like collecting evidence. These shows are more so important to me because, you know, they're kind of creepy. They kind of creep you out, kind of give you the woogie boogies, so to speak, to quote Jack and several of his shows at this point. But it was at that point that I was locked in, and so was Katrina. Katrina at that point was like, hey, I want to investigate here. She's like, I know we got lots of stuff to cover, but this is mine. I want it. I'm taking it. Yep, this is me. Jack was very much in agreement with that. Like, hey, if you want it, you can have it. I don't have to have anything to do with this. You can do this alone, all by yourself. They parted ways. Jack went downstairs to the time clock hallway. Katrina stayed upstairs in the second floor hallway. And, you know, she did some investigations. She called and asked, hey, can you make a knocking noise? Can you make a loud knocking noise? She got nothing back at first, with the exception of like a creaking or a squeaking noise that she perceived to be a voice almost, but it was nothing that she could make out as far as a language of any sort. She noted, hey, I'm done here. I'm fisting to go back downstairs to command center. I'm done here. And she went to walk away, and as soon as she did, loud bang. Jack's investigation of the time clock hallway didn't result in very much. He did try some provocation methods. That didn't result in much. There was a small hit on the REM pod that he was using down there. They fade to black. Then it's time for the reveal. They sit down with the owners of Hillview and also Ken, and they reveal what they found. And ultimately, from that point on, there wasn't a whole lot of revelatory information that occurred. The only revelation, really, for them was the fact that, hey, they got to spend more time here because, quite honestly, the place is too big. It's absolutely too big for anyone to kind of capture in one night. I really do want to get back to the root of why this information is so revelatory. Michelle Belanger, she actually went on a tweet storm last night as this thing was being unveiled to the world. She says, without going into spoilers, I have an exercise that might help you wrap your head around some of our conclusions. She says, first, an exercise, one of two. Close your eyes and imagine how you would appear as a spirit. What does that look like or feel like to you? What parts of your internal sense of self manifest most clearly in this imagined projection? I can tell you right off the bat that for me, that would be my glasses. I've worn glasses since I was in kindergarten. It's a weird accessory that has become part of my person in a way that I don't think humans dealt with prior to modern civilization, modern being less than 1,000 years. That's our definition of modern here. Exercise 2. If you were completely free from this physical body, how much of your current appearance would you retain? Just talked about that. If you had total control of how others perceived you, what would you intentionally change? What of your personality might unconsciously spill through? So definitely my glasses are staying. Definitely my sense of humor would probably remain. Not that I would be into antics. Well, maybe. I would probably get bored, man. I'd probably get bored and start doing crazy stuff. I'm sorry. Now consider how another living person who has never met you as a human being might experience you in this imagined spirit form. How would they interpret your personality, your emotions, choices, actions, this internalized appearance? They probably would get upset or be frightened. Who knows? I would hope not. That would never be my intention. My full intention, as I exist now in my mind, would be to try to communicate and just try to bridge this communication gap. That would be what I'd want to do. I'd want to build a bridge, same way that I've been trying to do so today. Now imagine someone terrible, someone carrying around a lot of anger, resentment, unresolved trauma. What might this project into the world once they are no longer attached to a physical body? What words might we use to describe that appearance? Not every word we use for entities in the paranormal accurately defines the nature of a thing. Rather, we tend to apply labels based on our observations and assumptions of actions, behavior, what an entity does, not necessarily what that entity is. She says, P.S. I don't think it is strictly possible for those of us in the paranormal investigation to ever, with absolute certainty, define what a spirit is or is not. At best, we have observations. We are nowhere near a point where we can definitively say what they mean. I agree with her. We are doing the best that we can with the senses that we have, and existence as we know it is broader than the spectrum that we can perceive. So what she's just pointing out here is the fact that we can't necessarily say, hey, for certain, we know what we're dealing with. And when we try to put labels on it, we almost seem silly. My opinion, we seem silly when we try to do stuff like that. So when Jack suggests that this may be a single entity, I think that correlates very, very much so with what Michelle Belanger is pointing out here, in that we don't know. These people have given personalities and names to these entities. Excuse me, didn't mean to hit the mic. Do that every episode. But they've got these personalities here that they've attributed these presentations to, these personalities to, and maybe that's not true. Maybe it isn't what it seems right in front. And I think that's the most important thing that came out of all of this. I mean, really, those same things could be attributed to the living as well as the dead. If we like to pretend like we know what we're talking about, our fingers are on the pulse of what's going on, but you really don't know what other individuals are going through. We have no idea what we're actually dealing with. I don't mean to say that to scare you. I mean to say that as in the fact that maybe we should show more compassion to people, that we don't, in the fact that we don't know what we're talking about. Show a little bit of humility. Show a little bit less arrogance. And whenever you're dealing with someone who might be going through something and are behaving in a strange way, or presenting in a strange way, be a little bit more understanding. That's another good takeaway from this. I really do hope that you've enjoyed this video. I like this show. I like multiple different paranormal shows, and I may do some more breakdowns of stuff. If you guys show me that you like it, tell me in the comments down below whether or not you feel like you've wasted the past half hour, or if you enjoyed your time with me. Hit the subscribe button while you're here and show us some support. You can follow us over on Twitter at @Fringe_Toast. You can go to Facebook.com/FringeToast13 if you want to follow our Facebook page. Or you can send us an email at fringetoast13@gmail.com. Right now we're looking for people to share their stories with us so that we can share it with the audience here. So if you've got something that you'd like to share with us, whether you want to put that in written format and we try to convey that over film and audio, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, we would love that as well. It ain't been George Norrie and it ain't Coast to Coast, but I'm Bobby, and you've been served a side order of Fringe Toast. You guys take it easy. Peace.